welcome students. Today we are going to start a new chapter, that is force and laws of motion. Topics to be covered in this lesson are introduction, then what causes motion, force, and then we'll discuss balanced and unbalanced forces, Newton's first law, second law, third law of motion, Galileo's idea of force and motion, mass versus inertia, and then conservation of momentum. So what is the objective of this lesson? From the name of lesson, what do we see? We see force and laws of motion. So in our previous lesson, we talked about motion. It's different types. Now, in this lesson, we want to know what causes motion. Why does motion takes? Let's see the cause of motion. Now, what is the cause of motion? An external force. And what is an external force? Let's look at this example. Do you think that if you are having a ball, that a ball ever moves on its own? If it does, we fear that it's some magical or mysterious event that's taking place, right? So normally a ball when kept anywhere, say on a table, it will never move on its own. It will be at rest. It will move only when we apply some force on it. So external forces needed to make a stationary body move. So that means a body which is at rest will be in motion only when an external force is applied. Similarly, let's suppose a body is moving. So do you think that the body stops on its own? Yes, it does sometimes. Let's suppose you apply some force on the ball and the ball starts moving. Now, will it keep on moving indefinitely? Not at all, right? After some point of time, it is stopped. So, why do you think that the body stops? The ball stopped because again there was an external force which is applied on it. And what was that force? That is frictional force. Let's not concentrate much on frictional force and all those stuff here. Here what I am trying to say, that a body which is at rest will start moving when an external force is applied on it. Similarly, a body which is moving will come to rest only when an external force is applied on it. So that means force is the cause of motion. Force can make a body to move. Force can stop a moving body. Now, in different scenarios, you have different types of forces acting on a body to make it move or to stop it. We'll talk about all those scenarios in detail one by one. So now what causes motion? It's force that causes motion. Let's quickly talk a bit about force. That what is force? So here I will focus my study on motion. So now for that we will talk about two categories of force. That is balanced force and unbalanced forces. Now, what are balanced forces? Balanced forces are equal and opposite forces. As the name says, balanced, it means to make things equal on both sides. Balanced means it has to be equal on both sides. So, forces which are equal and opposite. It means the forces which are equal in magnitude but opposite in direction. Let's suppose if there's a force of say 1 Newton applied on an object, say in east direction, then another force of 1 Newton is applied in say west direction, opposite direction. So if magnitude of both the forces are same, 1 Newton, and what is the magnitude? Here it is 1 Newton, and Newton is the unit of force, you know that. So when magnitude is same, we say forces are equal and they are in opposite direction. Force again, you know, it's a vector quantity. So I'm sure that you have studied the basics of force in your previous classes. So balanced forces are equal and opposite. They do not cause any change in motion because they are equal and opposite. So if you apply apply force equal and is in opposite direction, then object will not move in any way, in any of the direction. So these balanced forces do not cause any change in motion. So the best example you can think of is Tug of War. You guys might have played this game. So there are two teams on each side, and both teams try to pull the rope on both ends, right? So one team is applying force in one direction, and the second team applies force on opposite direction. Now say both are applying force. Now see both are applying force, but in opposite direction. And say if the magnitude of force is equal, they are applying the equal forces on both directions. Then what happens? None of them wins because both are applying equal forces on both directions. So now what happens? If the forces are not equal, there comes the unbalanced force, right? So here, when you are applying a balanced force, it does not cause any change in motion. Okay, but what happens if the forces are not equal? Then there comes an unbalanced force. So unbalanced forces are the unequal forces that the magnitude of force in one direction is greater or smaller than that of the other direction. So in this case, forces can be in the same direction or opposite direction. Let's suppose if you have an object, there can be two scenarios. Either the magnitude is different or the direction is different. Let's suppose this is your object, O, first one, and you apply force of 1 Newton along, say, left direction or say along right direction, and you apply force of 0.5 Newton along the right direction. 1 Newton in east direction and 0.5 Newton, say, in west direction. So what will happen? A greater force is being applied on the east direction. So the body will start moving along this direction. Now you can have another scenario. You have again an object and you are applying a force of 1 Newton along east direction. Now you apply another force of 1 Newton along the same direction. Now in this case you are applying same forces, equal forces, and along the same direction. What happens? Net force along the direction, west direction, is 0, and the force is along east direction. And how much force is along east direction now? East direction now, net force, that is 2 Newton, because 1 plus 1 is 2 Newton. So therefore the body will start moving in east direction. Therefore, so we can see that unbalanced forces cause a change in motion. So in the same example, tug of war, let's suppose if the force on one side is more, then entire team gets pulled along that direction, right? So that is the motion takes place along that side, and that team will be considered as winning. So this is the concept of balanced and unbalanced forces. Thank you.